Oh yeah, let me do that.
so I can see the comments.
Okay, let's see. Why is that happening? Uh, T7. Okay. All right. So we'll just move that over there. Boom here. Cat.
Yeah,
12
she wants to
o'clock.
go.
Hmm?
It's all right. I'm talking to the cat.
She wants to go out.
She does. She
Put her.
can't. It's pitch black.
Oh, okay. Here, let me tag you.
Okey-dokey.
Oh, I ate too many donuts, man.
Yes, I've had one of those overeating days myself today.
I've been doing really good, but last night I had two donuts because they bought donuts here at the studio, and I spent the night here last night. So I saw the donuts after
Yeah,
I
it's
after I
like
ate four tacos. Then I had to have two donuts, and I just had a
no,
boss.
you always need something sweet after spicy stuff, I find.
Yeah, I love that. Here, let me put on the comments.
Okie dokie.
All right, we got a few people here. 32 people in the house.
Just bear with me while I turn this off. Right, there we go.
All
Ernie's
right.
here. Hello, Ernie.
Yeah. So,
And we,
yeah, there was a lot of hoopla from that show we did, and then I can't remember everything, but I remember because what happened was Serena's had said, "I'm going to come on at some point," and then she saw the show with you, and she said that she was cooking and she was like just inspired. She loved the conversation. She loved the thing about cleaning up your side of the road, and so she said, "I want to come on and talk about it." So we did a show yesterday, hour and a half, and we talked about it. She was really good, and so then I saw your thing because we were talking about impasse, narcissism. Victims, perpetrators, and ultimately everything, 0 pointing everything. But then I saw your post. What was the first one I saw? Second empath and secondary narcissism, and then I saw the one you just put up, malignant narcissism. So I didn't catch all that. I wasn't really like focused on that, but the part about what is it? Victim consciousness and narcissism are one and the same, right? Like, I mean, is that right?
one of the same. Well, that's the bipolarity within all human beings,
Of
I
course,
feel.
yeah. We all have it. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I think what I was getting from what you were talking about, but you're going to be doing most of the talking here. Okay, so was that we're both, we're both, and whether it's those polarities or other polarities, anytime we think we're one and not the other, we got work to do. I have a new name now, Toderick.
Yes, yes, it's your sort of
Millie
extended English name.
Millie can call me whatever she wants. I love Millie. She's very cool. She's a very, very powerful lady.
So this is how I see it, and everything I'm saying here really is just how I see things. And it's possible that a lot of this will be still obscured in a lot of ways. But what I found out was, Todd, I came to the point of killing myself, right, and nearly
Mm.
did it, by my own hand. And something happened to me in that process, which almost, I like knocked on the doors of heaven or hell or some other dimension. And it's like this little head popped out to say, yes, what can I do for you? I'd like to come in, please. I've had enough. And they just laughed, right? And they just laughed and they said, bugger off, right? You shouldn't have signed the form if you can't take a joke, right? So they said, you signed the form, you signed up for a specific curriculum, right? You chose it. So turn round, they kicked me up the bottom and they said, look, just pay attention now to the guidance that you're going to get from your heart and stop listening to that tricky dicky head of yours because, Joseph, That's the seat of stinking thinking, and that's where you've gone wrong, right? And from that day on, Todd, which is nearly 31 years ago now, right, I've tried first thing in the morning to tap on my heart like that. And I'm only explaining the way I do things. And I go, hello? Is there anybody in there? And I get a sense of boom, boom, like a connection, like a wireless connection on the internet.
Uh-huh.
It sort of clicks in, the Wi-Fi clicking. I get a sense of, and I say, any instructions for the day, right? And sometimes I get a feeling. Sometimes I might even get a thought. On the odd occasion, Todd, I've heard voices and I've seen things, but that's not very strong in me, the hearing other voices thing, but I have done, There was an occasion when I was going through this process, I think I've mentioned to you before, where I sat down on the bed, I got this feeling of overwhelming calm, and this voice said to me, Joseph, we love you. And I thought, oh no, I'm going back to the psychiatric department, this thing's talking to me. But Todd, it seemed like it came out of myself. It was talking in my left ear. And I said, and that's very, very nice, I said. So come back in the morning when it's light and leave me alone, Anyway, I then had a beautiful night's sleep and woke up in a completely different world, So I'm just explaining what happened to me. And a lot of stuff like this happened to me when I was a child as well, Todd, because I was supremely, supremely sensitive as a child, like most people who tune into this show are, right? I was attached to my mother's leg, right? And I wouldn't let go because she represented security to me. But as a consequence of that, I really never developed my own thinking. I just listened to every word that my mum said and followed her instructions. Now, there's no blame or anything here, but it's just she was looking after me because I was born 6 weeks premature. I had respiratory problems when I was born, respiratory distress. I was born with scoliosis of the spine and congenital hip dysplasia. So basically, I was a mental and emotional and physical cripple in some ways, not massively, but definitely misaligned in all sorts of different ways. So consequently, I was very sensitive as a child, physically, mentally, emotionally, and stuff like that, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but that carried on through my childhood. And basically, my mother was the one I ran all my thoughts through, all my ideas, and she would either yay or nay them, and I would follow her instructions. Now, when I got into my teenage years, Tom, and I found alcohol, that completely changed. I blamed my mother for every misfortune that I'd ever had, right? And it was almost like this sort of Oedipus Rex complex, So the point is, my problem was when I got hold of alcohol, right, it changed me totally. It helped me to release all the repressed, compressed energy that I've been holding back for years. And it gave me the feeling of being powerful. And in drink, Todd, generally speaking, I was horrible. I was aggressive. I was just a narcissist, right? But I don't think I was what I call a primary narcissist. I think I was what's called a secondary narcissist. And that's what I see this, and I see this in a lot of spiritually sensitive people. I see that and I just explained me, what I did was I created such a shield that nobody could get close to me. So in order to get on in the world, I started to duck and dive and pretended that I loved everybody and I was very, very helpful. But really, behind the shield, I was really sensitive. I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence, but I used my head as a sort of ducking and diving and dodging and weaving way to cope with life. Right, I'll shut up now and see if anything's come from that.
Okay, so because I just want to learn. So I don't know. This is all part of cleaning up your side of the road, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
So, first of all, is there such a thing? Oh, well, yeah, that's just too. What's the difference between primary narcissistic frequencies being emitted and secondary narcissistic frequencies being emitted?
I think in primary narcissism, right, they don't get past the second stage of human development. The first stage of, I'm going to explain that. Stop butting in while I'm on the flow, but in the flow. So the first stage of human development is when we're born, right, the first sort of hormonal thing that comes in and the psychological thing is the protection of self. It's all about physical health. So it's all related to the adrenal glands. So that's the first.
So the first thing that when you say the first stage of development is about security for yourself,
Yeah.
what age range does that occur in? Right away?
0 to 1 to 2 years, then the first couple of years of
Okay.
life. So this
So-
is when. So this is when there's nothing else except the one. You know.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is
So
the
that's
one.
a good thing. That's a good thing. What you're saying, it's
It
like
would be a
coming in.
good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I got you. Okay.
So it's a good thing if you move then and you've come to terms with your own physical body. But if for some reason you're exploring your physical body and touching your widget and sticking your finger up your bum and all that, and you're being screamed at, don't fucking do that, don't do that, it's dirty, right? Well, you've had no opportunity then, you see, haven't you? And then in those early formative years then, the body then becomes something dirty, something that you're not used to. So you don't really form a true connection with your physical body. So that's the first stage that comes online. And the hormone associated with the physical security and all the things. So that's about warmth. It's about shelter. It's about drinking. It's about eating. It's about all those things that bring in, right, the ability to physically, right, be comfortable. And then what happens then is after we grow then, what's supposed to happen is the next stage that comes online are the gonads or the sex organs. And with sex organs comes up, if natural, comes sexual feelings then.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the thing is, so with the sex hormone, so first of all, we've got adrenaline or epinephrine as it's called. The next stage in this natural evolutionary process is the sex hormones come online. Now, if you're brought up in a very repressive or Irish Roman Catholic background, the whole thing about sex is a sin, right? Anything to do with sex, even the mention of the word sex, oh, it's a sin, you know, and all that sort of thing. So from an environmental condition and a sensitive child building up, he's already put a block on that one, right?
Right.
So all these natural feelings, because they're natural and emerging, what actually happens then is they start to misdirect. So the mind of the developing child starts to misdirect it because it's associated with emotional disturbance, right? And it's a sin. I was told at a very early age that all that stuff, you're going to hell. If you touch that again, you're going to hell. You know, all these sorts of things, right? I'm getting to the point now. So back to primary narcissism. That's associated with what's called the reptilian complex of the human being. It's to do with the brain stem. It's got nothing to do with going outside of itself. It's all contained in this unique sort of one-way system. It's all about me, I, self, me. Now, some people they get blocked at that stage, so they've never got into the next stage, which is the third chakra or the third level of development, which is all about social. It's all about extending and going outside of yourself and starting to sort of mix and mingle. Right, I'll shut it now for a sec.
No. Yeah, no, because I'm just want to stay on track, but I got you. It clicked. So basically, excuse me, the first stage is root chakra related, right?
Absolutely.
And the second one is the sacral sexual part, and then what you're saying is that primary narcissistic frequencies begin when a person can't make the jump from the sacral to the solar, which is social contact.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that they're stuck there. And I think from a soul's purpose point of view, Todd, they're meant to be at that stage for various lessons for everybody. So the whole point about it is people who can't do that and get into the next bit, because this is where social, it then comes developmentally, it bifurcates then into the left and the right hemisphere. So the first part's to do with brainstem, so that's a one-way track, and then it comes up to the left and right hemispheres. Now, primary narcissists, they don't go any further than the first two dimensions or stages or frequencies or whatever you want to call it, hormones, you know. So they're trapped in. So how can they get through life? So they've not developed any empathy because there's no social constructivism going on. They don't understand, they can't understand, Todd, anybody else's point of view, because they've just got a single track, one-minded purpose in life, right? And that's what I think malignant narcissism is, because to get their jollies, they can only get their excitement and their energy in life from sex and violence, Todd. And I know this is going deep here, but, you know, there are people on this planet who could be described, if you like, as psychopaths, right? Now, in a way, Todd, I'm not letting anybody off the hook here, but they can't help it, mate. They can't help it.
Right. No, I got you. I get what you're saying. This is part of the human condition, and I like what you said too, that because it makes sense from what I understand, and that is we come in as a soul to work on something specific. I can see where that would be a good way to kind of track that would be through the chakras. You know, I might need to work on my throat chakra, you know, in this life, or somebody, you know, in this case. So it's, but again, too, also, you're saying I'm not going to let anyone off the hook, but you're also not. It doesn't. I'm not getting that you're stigmatizing anyone. You're just saying this is a condition. This is one of the facets of the human condition. Some people are in this category, and some people, I guess, would be, and you're going to let us know what it is, secondary narcissistic stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the secondary narcissist, right, comes in with all the chakras already opened, but during the reincarnation process, right, they get closed down until they get to a point where they're in a sort of secondary narcissistic point. They've got the same template, but they have to go through each process, so they can actually redevelop themselves. But it's almost like, let's say, Todd, let's say we came down fully developed, but all our chakras were closed off, but we had to go through the same growing process to understand what every single person on the planet has to go through. Do you see what I mean? So there's a emotionally sensitive people, like most people are, who are sort of spiritually activated, right? They come into an environment that seems very hostile. So in order for them to cope, they build up a shield. Primary narcissists don't need to build up a shield because they're not afraid. They don't know what fear is. They just keep going forward on their own one-track mind. However, secondary narcissists, the way I see it, and it could be wrong, they come in and they're terrified, right? And they go through the various processes, and then they either turn to drink and drugs or sex or whatever, some sort of addictive behavior to try and quell their emotional disturbance. Because primary narcissists, they don't have any emotional disturbance. But secondary narcissists, who are emotionally hypersensitive people with extended radars, they do. They're conflicted all the time. They feel emotionally disturbed. They get alcohol like I did, and suddenly they open up. Right, and they get a touch of what it's like to be free and disinhibited. However, it's using a chemical means to get freedom, so they get attached to the chemical means. They need more and more and more and more to get the same effect, and one day it doesn't work anymore, right? And so they have to go on then to high-powered sedatives and other drugs and drinks, so to try and chemically balance themselves out. On one day they'll be taking an upper, and on another day they'll be taking a downer, and they can never get the balance right. Every now and then they may feel comfortable and think that they've got it made, and suddenly it just goes away. I'll shut up now while you...
yeah, you see me ruminating my thoughts.
Yeah.
So if the one that can't get past into the third chakra, well, you call that a primary. Let me ask you this first. Everyone that comes through the birth canal, are they an empath?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So there are some people that are not empaths, and that would be the extreme of that group. It would be that's why the sociopathic. Okay, because there's no empathy. But the other avenue, to me, sounds like everybody else. Like, unless I guess how big of a group or a segment of whatever of us has no issue going right through 1, 2, and 3.
Exactly. Well, I've related this in my mind, it's just the way I see things, to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He explained this, and 10 years before he died, he used to have 5 stages to development of humans. 10 years before he died, he introduced another 2. So I suspect that he was working with the chakras of the Orient, you know. And what I've done is I've tried to link all this up with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is the journey towards self-actualization. I've tried to link it up with the chakras, and I've also tried to link it up with the 7 major endocrine glands as well.
Okay.
So let me just do this. The first chakra then is the root chakra. It's associated with the adrenal glands, where adrenaline gets produced. It's the most powerful defensive instinct for protection. The second one's associated, it's the sacral chakra, so it's associated with the gonads. Testosterone in males, estrogen in females, just to make it easy for now. There's other combinations.
Okay.
When we get up to the third chakra, which is about personal power, if you look at all the organs there, you've got the liver here, you've got the pancreas, you've got the gut, and you've got the spleen, all organs to produce personal power. Okay? So then the next one, you move up to the heart chakra. That's associated with the third one's normally associated with the pancreas and insulin production and stuff like that. Okay, so far? So that's moving into society and branching out. The next one is we get to what's called the lower heart. Now, Todd, I believe that most of the global population is stuck at 3.5. And I would say that was lower heart.
Right.
Now, what happens now is at 3.5, that's where the crucifixion and the rock bottom happens, I believe, for humanity. And at that point, they can either choose to hang on and go with the old patterns that they've been using. So they'll go round again in another loop until the pain gets worse. Right. The solution to that one is to take a quantum leap then into higher heart.
Right.
Okay, I'll explain this in a second. But what they have to do for that one is they have to turn their back and let go of all the ideas, all the attitudes, all the influences that up to that point have basically guided their life, because they've not been their own ideas. They've been socially constructed and socially engineered. So you get to a point where you think nothing's working anymore. I'm so unhappy. I think I'll kill myself because I can't see any point. And Todd, you know that there's loads and loads and loads of people at that position at the moment, right? And what actually happens is they'll go to some expert, and the expert will say, okay, well, if you think like this, when you get that feeling, start to think in this way. So they try it, right? Because they want to be good persons. They try it. That doesn't work either. Really, the solution is to just sit and surrender then. This is the hard part. You surrender then to the process. And that's the difficult part, because it only took me 15 years to surrender to that process. And I'm hoping that in conversations like this, people will realize what to do, and I'll show them what to do next. Not with giving them ideas. I'll show them the technique that I was shown, and hopefully they'll give it a fair trial.
Okay. So the majority of people are at 3.5. They're in the heart. I remember when I woke up and I was getting my intel 10 years ago, they showed me the heart. Now, it wasn't the human heart. It was the heart. It was, so I don't know. To me, if I think about it now, especially after what you've just explained, well, they showed me a heart, a line in the middle. One side was ego, one side was soul. And I, still unpacking that. But from what I'm hearing from you is the lower heart, for all that it is for us, is the human part of the heart. And because it's the human part of the heart, it's the human definition or misconception of what love is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is that that's where everything gets wiped clean. And then we make a leap, and that leap is, I might be assuming something here, but ultimately they're going to find, I'm going to find that when I make that leap, or we make that leap, that it's not most likely it's not going to be, this is a question, most likely it's not going to be an external force, certainly can't do it for us, or even really significantly assisting us. This is something that has to be done on our own?
Perfect, Todd.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect.
Okay.
Right, because my understanding at 3.5, you're there. If you sit still long enough, what actually happens is the evolutionary impulse or the grace of God or this ascension impulse will actually bring you up. So you have to let go and surrender and basically get to a point where you say, I've come to the end of my thinking. I just can't effing work this out anymore. Right, the drink's not working, the drug's not working, I might as well kill myself. Right, and when you get to that point, it's a good point to be in if you understand the next bit. If you don't understand the next bit, then you're going to be in it. And lots of people, like I tried to kill myself, but right in the nick of time, I was shown by people who'd been through the process and gone through it what to do. And then I followed the principles, not their ideas. I followed the principles that they'd followed, and the miracle happened for me too. And that's when I woke up in a completely and utterly different world. So the lower heart to me is the sort of revolving fourth dimension, and it's all to do basically with emotional disturbance and understanding that. Now, the people I met in Alcoholics Anonymous, they said to me, and I mentioned this to you the other night, if you are feeling emotionally disturbed, now I'm not saying having emotions, I'm saying if you're feeling emotionally disturbed, that cannot be the divine part of you, because that doesn't get disturbed. It must be some ego threat. And we call this in here, don't we, a trigger. And you think, because then your conscious mind comes in to say, it must be the way he looked at me, it could be this, it could be that. To the truth be known, Todd, most of the time we've got no idea what's causing it. That's when, in my opinion, we have to stop, surrender the analysis of it, sit back in mindful breathing and mindfulness, and just ask the question of our inside deeper self, can you please show me what this is about? And give me the courage to take the action that's associated with the solution, right? And that's, Todd, how I've lived my life for 31 years, right? It's not always easy.
Repeat
it's
it.
The only way.
Can you repeat
forward.
that? Can you repeat that? You get to a place and you say what?
You get to a place and you say basically, so I've got emotional disturbance. Okay, so you have to go, rather than emotionally react and link to some form of coping strategy that's in your long-term
or externalize it in any way, really, right?
Or externalize it. Yeah. Don't take any action on it, because you'll have an old impulse to react and go forward unconsciously.
So
and
now
you'll think that's the.
So now you're going to do something we've never done before. I'm talking about in general. You know what I mean? So now the person is, which goes along with what I was told 10 years ago. Whatever you do, don't do anything that's been done before. So now you have this. Well, it's like a gateway. It's like I guess it maybe even the most major initiation we have. But so I'm sitting there, I'm in the 3.5. I have emotional disturbance. I understand that that's not my soul. That's the human part of me, the 3.5, and I want to get to the 4.0 because obviously that would have a major effect on dissipating or even totally bringing into equilibrium emotional disturbance and its polarity, right? So now I'm going to not externalize anything. I'm going to sit with my emotional disturbance. I'm going to surrender and say, I'm yours.
Absolutely. Hit me with it, big boy. I don't know what to do. But you see, Todd, that was the hardest part. For me to surrender to the understanding that there might be something more intelligent than myself, right? And this sponsor said to me, this guide, he said to me, Joe, you might think you're clever, but all your ideas, all your emotions, all your attitudes, all the very formative forces of your life have brought to a point where you want to kill yourself. So maybe you're not as clever as you think you are. And I thought, who is this bastard? Right. And so he was right. And this is then what happened to me. He said, are you willing to go to any lengths, right, to be free of all this disturbance and to work towards a better quality of life, a more healthy life? And I said, yes, I am. He said, do you mean it? And I said, yeah, I've tried absolutely everything else. My life is totally and utterly unmanageable by the way I think. Because what that means to me is the way I process information cognitively, thinking, and emotionally is bringing me to the point of death, right? And I was trying to blame everybody else. If you acted in this way, I'd be happier, and therefore I'd have a better way of life. That's what the narcissism is. Let me do this bit. He said, read this bit out of the book. And it said, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of all our problems, right? And I got a belt in me gob, a belt in me stomach, and I thought, he said, are you having an emotional disturbance? I said, yeah, I certainly am.
So
he said, well, is that the divine part of you?
Yeah.
Or do you think your ego's being threatened here? And that's when I started to see it, Todd. Let me do this next bit, because this is the bit about narcissism, right? And how it can be overcome, right?
I missed the connection or the correlation when you said in the book it mentions selfishness, self-serving. Now this is in this is in the context of the 3.5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Because like I would imagine that service to self, I guess, would take on a new definition at 4.0, more of a Trinity definition that's serving my external equally as it serves me, right?
Yeah, but you don't get to a balanced perspective until you've actually surrendered. That's the whole point. The equalization of the hemispheres, somebody's mentioned hemispheres here. In that process, what starts to happen then is you start to see both sides of the story. Whereas an egocentricity, you can only ever see your own side. You can pretend to understand.
Yeah. Now this is okay. This is good. Okay, because I had this question for you earlier, and we talked about it for a second, but I've got to understand this. You've already established not everyone is an empath, but I would imagine that most of the people in our circles are empaths. That's been a big part of the journey. Okay, so now you're okay. Where was I going with this? So, God, it's so hard to use these words though, Joe, because they have such these connotations. Like that's why I don't like using even the word narcissist. I like narcissistic frequencies. But the point is, and you're about to take us there, is you can be an empath. You can become aware and accept that, like all of us, you have some narcissistic frequencies. You also have this thing of the emotional disturbance, and now we're going to make the leap into the 4.0, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So what I did was, and I'm only explaining my own journey. This bloke said to me he was a window cleaner. So my ego's still saying to me, how can this window cleaner possibly help me? See, because I was working from intellectuality, right? Knowledgeable idiot, he called me. I said that, And he said to me, Joe, he said, this is what I did, and it helped me. He said, get down on your knees. I thought, aye. There we go. While you're down there, because that's what my head was doing. And he said, Joe, will you just please do this? Right. So we both knelt down. And he said, say these words after me. And my head was saying, chattering. It was saying, God, I've got involved in a cult here and all this sort of stuff. And he said, Joe, just give it a fair trial. So he said, say after me, God. Oh, I thought, here we go. I've been nabbed by the Jehovah's Witnesses or something, He said, Joe, say the words after me. So I'm kneeling down in this shitty flat where he lived and everything else, right? And we're kneeling down, and he said, God, I offer myself to thee. So I said, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of this bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And Todd, no shit, I felt this funny feeling up my spine. I thought, that was a bit strange. So then we sat down, had another cup of coffee, and then he started to introduce me, right, to basically the characteristics of the ego self, right, and the defensive self. And he said, Joe, there's two sides to it. There's a narcissist and there's an empath. And at that point, Todd, I didn't understand this. He said, there's a narcissist and an empath to this side. He said, the empath side is generally covert. It's emotionally sensitive. It's like a child, right? But the other side, the narcissistic side, is generally overt. It's the bully. It's the driver. It's everything else. And then he related it, because he did a lot of martial arts, to the yin and the yang, right? And you know, to cut a long story short, I then realized, he said, do you know, Joe, he said, because I used to think, Todd, that I was a really helpful person. You know, I was the last person to know, but I used to run round after everybody, being a gross people pleaser. If they asked me for a favor, I'd say, oh yes, I'll do that. But you know, Todd, if they didn't go overboard by giving me a present for helping them, or saying thank you a million times, and sort of, you know, sort of building my ego up, then the other part of me would say, bastards, selfish. So there was duality going on with me all the time. Are you with me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, just having a bit of a wobble on the internet. So he said to me, Joe, I said, but Ray, his name was Ray, you know, strangely enough, you know, Ray of Sunshine, you know, or Field of Dreams, you know. But he said to me, Joe, he said, I know that you've helped a lot of people, but can I tell you that most of the people you helped, you were just interfering really with their own growth? And I thought, what are you talking about? He said, you were basically running in and saving them from growing up themselves. And when I got this, he said, you're probably, Joe, one of the most selfish people I've ever met in my life. Fucking hell. Jesus. And it got me again. Bang. And I said, what do you mean by that? I've helped that many. He said, Joe, he said, you helped them to get your ego fed.
Yeah. So this is...
Go on. This is really important, this.
Yeah, but this is like Wounded Healer, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I still see people at this stage. I'm not saying I'm any better or anything, but when you've been through the process, you can sort of smell it in other people, you know. Right. And Todd, I didn't understand this. It takes a long, long time to get turned around and to start seeing your own behavior and realize just how self-centered it is. Because I was what's called a reciprocal altruist. And what that means is I would give as long as something else would come back. So there was always expectation of some reward, even though I pretended that there wasn't. So I'd say, no, don't worry. I don't want anything back for this. No, don't worry. You see, because I had this idea of unconditional giving, but I was still a very subtle conditional giver.
Right.
Okay. And I'm only talking about me. I'm sure nobody listening to this is similar.
So just to back up a little bit and revisit before you continue. So, and just add or subtract, because I'm just trying to understand in my own mind.
I think it's me.